Hello, welcome to See the Bounce Live. Today is going to be about the amazing care workforce. This is a real subject that I am so pleased to be sharing with Janet. Thank you. Back here today, we've been looking at lots of different subjects. Yes. I think this is the one that's going to be really, really important because I don't think they get mentioned enough.
No, they don't. They don't.
Where should we start, Janet? Where should we start? So, first of all, you support from all different areas.
Yes.
So just give us a little bit of a sort of recap on how you can support and serve people.
One of the biggest ways in which I really want to help and support people is when they're looking for care and looking at the choices that they have and finding out where they can go, what they can do. Can they get any sort of financial help towards that? What are their options? Do they go into a care home? Can they go home? Can they have living care? All of those sort of things. So I'm there to try and help them to unravel what is or can be a complete nightmare.
Yeah.
And also maybe to support with different ideas that they may not have thought of.
And there's so many ideas that we've spoken about in previous shows. So that that can be supported both for the person that needs the care and for the carer. But today we're going to talk about the amazing care force that there is and what they do. And how can they get support? How can we be more supportive towards the carers?
Well, there are obviously organisations that do support carers, and I do know one or two of them that, in fact, I have worked with several of them over the years, but one or two of them that I've just found out about locally, which are different ones as well. But we need to really understand that our carers care for so many different types of people and deal with so many different types of people. We've got to be careful that we support them by not overworking them, because you are dealing with very emotional situations sometimes, and particularly if a carer has been going to a client for a very long time, they do, that you can't help it. I mean, obviously, there's the boundary, but you still obviously care for that person because you might be looking after them for 2 or 3 years. But above all, it's making sure that we value these people, we give them the credit that they deserve, because I do often say, I work in care, I'm happy to support in whatever way I could. I would probably not be a really great carer because I don't have that talent, and it is a talent to be able to go in and deal with people who sometimes can be really quite cruel and unpleasant to the carer through no fault of their own because of circumstance. So we just need to remember that these people are extraordinary, and I've met some pretty amazing ones over the years, really, really amazing ones. And of course, a lot of them really have been carers for years. They're not people that just sort of think, oh, it's a job. You can't go into it like that.
No, I really don't think anyone.
No.
So how can we, so say I was looking for a service for somebody on a family member, and there's different options that we've spoken about. What would you say to the person? Because like you said, often if they live in, for example, living care, and they have the person living there, I mean, that becomes a really close relationship. So how can you as a relative for that situation maybe help to kind of incentivize the carer or make sure that they're being looked after as well?
I think we have to remember that in many cases these days, a lot of families don't live close by. So what I try and do is to get as big a picture as possible of that person that they are looking for care. Now, I always feel that whenever I go and see anybody to do care, it's a bit like going to the dentist. Nobody really ever wants to talk to you because it's care. And, I don't want care, I don't need it. And that's, of course, is very typical of the older generation in particular. They're pretty stoical about what they will and won't do. However, I think it's really important that, and I think this is important for the relatives as well, is that if we can get that meeting whereby I'll happily go and meet with someone, discuss what their options are, see what their situation is, and also talk to the family, because sometimes they can be on their knees. And I would say in most cases, family genuinely want their relative to be looked after properly. So if we go and have the meeting, I mean, I've got a meeting I'm going to tomorrow to discuss what the options are for this elderly lady. I don't know what she's going to choose because I don't know what exactly her situation is. But if somebody says and brings up and says, oh, I've got dementia, or my mother's got dementia and I need this, and that, that tells me nothing. It's meeting the people, talking to them. And that for me is the joy, I suppose, of what I do, because if I can then put something in place that works for that family, that works for that client, then I think I've achieved what I set out to do. And also to look at where, maybe things could be sort of helped a little bit more than would appear at the first instance.
I was just going to say, so how can we make that journey easier? Because like my grandmother, for example, she was just blankly refused to ever go into care. And she then ended up in the care home the very last thing because she just could not live at home anymore. And she was so gentle and always an open arms. And all of a sudden she became quite horrible towards the staff. And I think it was just a way of saying, I don't want this and I don't want to be here. So how can we make that journey maybe a little bit easier, or start looking at having somebody like you come into the family before it gets to the point that it's absolutely needed?
I think it's looking at what you have in place already, and it's also being prepared to maybe adapt what you first thought. And I think going on from that, and again, this is something we were talking about earlier, the importance of any family member having power of attorney is vital, because they've got much more hold of what happens to their relatives should things deteriorate, because that's really the problem. All the while things are trundling on quite nicely, we think, well, it doesn't matter, but actually it does if things change overnight, and then you really need those power of attorneys to make sure to be in place in order that you have that choice about what happens to your relative. But asking about how we do it, what we choose, how we look at, it's so difficult because people genuinely don't know what their choices are. So they've got to sort of come somewhere, and I'm working to try and make people aware that they have got this choice, that if somebody says, well, you have to do such and such, you don't necessarily have to do that. Look at what the options are. Some people say, well, you've got to go into a care home. You might not want to go into a care home. You might be able to go home with living care. Equally, there are times when a care home is the right option as well. Look at respite, look at having different things like that. So just because you need care doesn't mean you have to have completely full-on care. You might be able to have somebody who comes in maybe 5 days a week. Things like that. Just look at the options, look at what's required, but above all, my real goal is to try and find out what people genuinely want and what their choices are, and what the family are happy with as well.
And I think not being frightened of it, like you were saying, power of attorney is so important. I think people are worried about signing that off because they think that the family, there might be sort of finances involved or big manor house involved, and they think that somebody in the family might want that, so they don't want to give that. It's making the choice of actually once they in their, before it's needed, it's not going to be taken away.
Well, it's so much easier. It's so much easier to put a power of attorney in place when, say, for you or I, because we can make that decision. We, I guess we discuss with our relatives what we would like if something was to happen. I think I pretty much made my wishes clear to my daughters, because it may be that, heaven forbid, that I could have an accident, and they need to know what I would choose. And it's not an easy thing to do later in life when you're trying to do a power of attorney where somebody might be losing their mental capacity. So it's so important.
It's too late.
It's too late, and then it does become a nightmare.
Yeah, and I think it's about finding out, like you said, preparing yourself a little bit for it, because we do all, we've done shows about this before, and I think it's just about, and this is why this awareness is so important, to make the awareness of the choices that are available, how we can support the carers as well as the families, as well as the individual. And that's where somebody like yourself can come in and actually look at bespoke situations.
Yeah, and also, I always looked at it, and I still do, if it was my parents, would I put that carer with my mum or dad? Or would I want that care for my mum and dad? And if I don't, then why am I going to put that person with someone else? You have to look at it from that side of things. So it's got to be the right person. And there are some extraordinarily amazing people out there. And so many care companies really, really put huge efforts into ensuring that the right people are employed by them. And sometimes all you hear about is how awful they are. It really is a very small percentage that are.
That's really positive to end.
Yeah, that's really positive.
Really positive way to end. So yes, thank you so much for that insight. Really, really amazing.
Really,
so thank you so much. And
Thank
thank you for watching. We've got more shows coming up with Janet about care services. And I think this has just been such an insight. Thank you so much. And until then, thank you so much and see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.